Welcome to the Missouri Leadership Development System On-Demand Principal Leadership Series. I'm Mike Rutherford, and I'm happy to be your host and guide for this on-demand series. The MLDS, Missouri Leadership Development System, is a comprehensive set of professional learning experiences designed by and for Missouri school leaders. This on-demand series is intended to preview, complement, and introduce a few of the nearly 100 leadership lessons that are contained in the Missouri Leadership Development System curriculum. Each episode of our on-demand series will have three components: a short video where I attempt to explain the leadership concept, a PDF file of written materials that will support each lesson, and a podcast so that you can engage with each leadership lesson in a mobile fashion should you decide to do that. We hope you'll find this on-demand series not only convenient and accessible, but also powerful and productive. Information on how you can engage in the full spectrum of MLDS leadership learning can be found at dese.mo.gov. There's also a complete listing of all of the MLDS specialists for your region in the PDF file that accompanies each episode. Thank you for participating. Welcome to the MLDS On-Demand Principal Leadership Series. This is Episode 2, the Technical-Symbolic Duality of Leadership Decisions. You know, leadership and decision-making go hand in hand, don't they? In fact, when we think about leadership, we automatically first think about decision-making. We think excellent, effective, memorable, legendary leaders. We're good at many things, but there aren't very many examples in our memory of really great, effective leaders who weren't good decision makers. So we know that decision making is essential, and decision making is fundamental to effective leadership. None of us wants to leave the legacy that, hey, Mike was a nice guy, but he choked when those decisions had to be made, in real time. That's not what we want to do. So what we want to do today is take a deep dive into one single aspect of leadership decision making, and, if you will, up our game a bit in that one single aspect. There's a lot of things to learn about leadership decision making. We're going to work on just simply one today. And here's what that is. We're going to consider every leadership decision that we make as having a duality, as having two components, technical and symbolic. Every decision that a school administrator makes throughout every day has a technical component and a symbolic component. And thinking about our decisions as having these two component parts can help us to be a more effective decision maker. I like to think of it like this, right? So here's a decision. As a school administrator, you make hundreds of these every day. You never have all the information that you need to make the decision perfectly, so you make the best decision you can at the time. Now here's a little bit of a curveball. I don't know about you, but I think the way I got into school administration was because I made some pretty technically good decisions in public, and someone took notice and said, hey Mike, you might be a fairly effective school administrator. They probably saw me supervising a cafeteria or building a master schedule or dealing effectively with students or parents in a communication situation. Probably what happened with me is what happened with you. You became a school administrator because of this, because you were technically pretty good at a few things. Now here's the cruel irony. As soon as we sign our name on the line of that contract that says school principal, then it's the other part of the duality that becomes more important. It's not fair, but it's reality. Now every decision you make not only has a technical component, it has a culture-shaping, symbolic, non-technical component. And the truth is, it's easier to make decisions technically. Does it fit the budget? Does it fit the plan? Is it legal? Does it align with policy? Does it make sense? Those are much easier decisions to think about, much easier components than to think about how will it affect my school's sense of fairness? How will it affect the culture of the faculty? How will it affect the way that our constituents look at our school? Those are all symbolic parts of a decision. So let's then take a look at how to make better decisions, knowing that each decision has this technical-symbolic duality. One way is to think about each part of the decision as having a valence, right? Positive or negative. So a couple of decision-making combinations that are relatively straightforward. Decisions that are positive technically and positive symbolically. Those are easy. We make those. That's the right call. Let's just do it. It makes perfect sense, and the optics are great too. It's also not terribly hard to make decisions when both valences are negative, when technically it doesn't make sense and symbolically it would send the wrong message. Well, let's just not make that decision. The tough ones, and the ones that perhaps we are remembered for, are when there's a mixed valence, right? So the technical is positive, but the symbolic is negative, or vice versa. Let's just build a few examples of that. As a school principal, I was out in front of the school one day, and the carpool line was bringing kids in the morning, and it was a little bit crowded. We had a lot of students. We probably could have used some more space in the parking lot. And I was talking to one of our assistant principals, and we came up with this idea. Why don't we take our kids that are disabled, that come and need vans and lifts and wheelchairs, and why don't we swing them around to the back door of the school where they'll have more room, and then it won't hold up the line, and they'll have more area and space to get out comfortably. Everything will work a lot better. Now you can already tell what a bad decision that would have been, wouldn't it? Now technically, it was a pretty positive decision, but symbolically, to have your able-bodied students enter the school through the front door and have kids with physical disabilities enter the school through the back door, that's a losing proposition. See the mixed valence there? It can be the other way. It could be that it's technically suspect, but symbolically strong. I know a principal once, an elementary school principal, who took time every day at lunch to sit down with students and read together. She invited 2 students per day, and they spent about 10 or 12 minutes just simply sharing books and reading together at lunch. Now, technically, that's not such a hot idea. The principal was not a trained reading teacher. The students rarely brought a book that was at their level. It was only 10 or 12 minutes. It was only 2 students out of 1,000. I'm pretty sure that that lunchtime reading session didn't have any effect on the school's reading scores. But you know where this is going, don't you? Symbolically, it was a brilliant decision. It sent the message clearly to everyone that reading is important and reading is enjoyable. And our principal even takes part of her lunch hour to share reading with students. See how the mixed valences are difficult, a little more difficult? We can do 2 things to be better decision makers, knowing that every one of our decisions has this duality between technical and symbolic. The first thing we can do is reflect. We can use the duality to reflect upon prior decisions so that we can learn from them and be better decision makers in the present. So take a look at your past decisions, and after they're done and they have a bit of age on them, take the technical symbolic duality and use it as a reflection tool. What parts were technically strong? What parts were symbolically strong? We can get smarter and smarter and better as decision makers if we'll be reflective and look at our past decisions through the lens of the technical symbolic duality. The second thing we can do to be a better decision maker is to be analytical. So to analyze something, means to take it apart, to break it down into its component parts and understand how the parts impact one another. So for current decisions, let's decide to be analytical. To every time we look at an important decision, especially one that has a mixed valence, let's just take an extra bit of time and analyze it and think through it. Technically, this looks good, but symbolically it has these problems, or technically not so good, but symbolically this is going to really be powerful. Also, probably a good idea to remember this. From the principal's office, every decision that we make, it's probably the symbolic side that has more power to shape the trajectory of our school improvement journey. So, challenge and opportunity. let's take what we know about the technical, symbolic duality of leadership decisions, and let's decide. Let's decide to be reflective, and let's decide to be analytical. And let's use the technical symbolic duality to help us be more effective in both of those domains. Let's just decide to do it.